Welcome to the video today. What I'm working on is I'm putting studs in this flange, and I'll show you the reason behind that in just a second. I actually need the red Loctite. It's stronger, but the blue will be sufficient for now. So in each one, what these studs are, they actually start out one size and end up smaller size. So if you can see that. So it's like a 10 millimeter on one side and like a 12 on the other. And I'm putting them in the flange itself, because this is a T4 flange and our turbo we have is a T3. So we adapt it down and we take our handy dandy, it's a little dirty, T4. I need to come back out some more. Got to find the right height on these. One needs to come up more, and that was pretty good. So with that, take the T3 and the V-bands on top. And now we can turn our turbo on top in any direction because we don't have a V-band flange up here. And plus this elevates it so when we do our downpipe, we got more room to adjust for the S14 because we're going to probably use a S13 actual downpipe. So a few things are going to kind of come into play here, but we're going to do this and adapt it down. I've never seen this done, I've never heard of this being done, but they make it all, so we're going to try it. And I think that will gain us some elevation to work with our actual exhaust, and it will allow us, when we put our V-band on the turbo itself, it will allow us some room to adjust that thing. So let me get a wrench and tighten this thing down, and we will go to the next part of this equation. So there it is, and like I said, it will adapt here, and a V-band will go on this to allow us to change the direction of our turbo. Maybe too high, I don't think so. I think we'll be okay, but it will give us some flexibility on this setup. Just trying to see how it works. This is all the first for me. So let me tighten this up and we'll go from there. All right, here we go. Okay, so here we go. We got the turbo set on with the new flange style. That thing sets high as crap. Yeah, that's higher than the motor, it's higher than, so if you look straight across, you see the top of that turbo a little bit. So it's gonna touch the hood, I've already figured out, but back in the day, we would take these bolts out and add a 1-inch spacer back here. So I think if I do that to let heat out, which is the purpose of that, we used to do it back in the day, I think that will give me that little bit of space I need right there. So, I mean, it don't just look horrible or nothing, but it sets up there for sure. But the purpose of that deal was this. So it's got a V-band down here. And so whatever I need at the back of the exhaust, this, you know, trying to figure out this whatever deal. Well, and I added a V-band, this bolted on. So that adds a V-band. So there's a V-band added down here and here. And so now I got to figure out that for my downpipe, which that created quite a bit of room to be able to make that transition. I think it'll be okay, honestly. I think that'll turn out pretty good. Again, that's a little high, but whatever, it is what it is. We're gonna rock it. So I've taken it all back off, pull off the thermostat, drill and tap my hole for my oil return, pull the intake, hook up my supply, put it all back on, and then figure out my plumbing for my water and my tie my supply in, and add fuel pressure and see if we got a fuel leak, which we will have already in my mind. It's going to leak. Then I have to figure out a throttle cable as well. So next step, pull that off, pull this off, add a supply, add a return, and that'll be the next two big things. So, all right, here we go. All right, so I've been kind of tinkering with this thing. I went ahead and got the drain line, got it drilled and tapped. It's not my finest work. It's all skin up. Yeah, I don't have the aluminum vise. Well, I've got one, I don't have it here, and I don't have the aluminum wrenches. So I grabbed a pair of channel locks and threw it in the regular vise, went to tightened it up. So I got that put together. The bottom is drilled and tapped. I have to go inside and clean it up from underneath and all that, drain the oil, shop vac it out pretty good. Yeah, it's in there. So I have to cut this thing to length, so I'll have to set the turbo back up, pop this piece in, try to figure out, get me a length, mark it, cut it, put the other end, figure if I need a 45 or what on this side, and whatever fitting I need to hook to the turbo. And that's what's next. Got the same thing here. It's all, I've got all the wires separated or open up again to be able to remove and re-zip tie and hook up all the wires and stuff. But I got the supply, I've got it ran, it's tied in. I've got it to where it'll hook into the turbo over here. I may set it first, that way in case I have to. These, for some reason, they don't come with where the end will turn, so you can kind of render it where you want. Well, they send them and they're like kind of tweaked. And so if you don't watch it, you'll put this in position where this line kinks. So I may end up putting the turbo on first and getting it all hooked up. That way if I have to adjust this side, get all that done. And the downpipe I can do later. As long as I get the feed and return line and then start looking into the coolants, I think I can just do barb fittings on that. But that's the main two right there. So yeah, I'll cut that to fit. At some point I've got to drain the oil and clean all that out and get me a new drain plug. Yeah, so got that far today. got the turbo. There's the other headers and crap. But I got the turbo, made it up. I'll separate it, put it back on. But that's what I've got, that's where I'm at. And wait a minute, I did relocate the fuel filter, or the regulator over here. That will change some things. I'll have, this vacuum will run under, which that'll be good because it runs under that intake. So that vacuum will go under. This will go to the fuel rail. They can go under and hook to the rail. What I'm worried about, those are pretty simple to get. What I am worried about is this power steering pump. I may have to extend these hoses. That one will have to, yeah, I've got to mount it way up here somewhere out of the way. And that one comes off at a sharp angle. I may, well, it comes off right at the throttle body almost. So I may end up having to come up and go around it somehow, some way. Like maybe on top of it, but I think it'll get in the way of the throttle cable. I'm not really sure, but I'll get there when I get there. I went through these sensors, trying to figure out which one was the coolant temp sensor. I still cannot figure out what the coolant temp sensor is supposed to look like. I've bought everything they've told me to buy, and I still don't know what plugs in there. I've bought 240 ones, I've bought Supra ones, I've bought whatever they've told me to buy. And if I can find here it is. So that's the style plug. That's one of the things they told me to buy. I've bought that, I've bought, they're all singles, so I don't know if I cut that and go to a single wire, because it's only a single wire. But I mean, paid $1,000 for this harness, I shouldn't have to. That's just me. Anyway, there it is. I got to go back through all the sensors and wires and everything, get all that tied back in. I'm out of zip ties. Probably 60% of what's laying there doesn't even go to anything. So the throttle motor, the throttle position sensor will be the only thing, and then the 4 injectors, or 6 injectors, cam sensor, and everything else is already plugged in. Pretty much everything else goes away. So like the throttle position we'll use, this is, what is this one? Throttle motor, that goes away. Several of these go away, and all kinds of different stuff go away. So that's where I'm at. Supply, return. I got a set of bolt cutters, so I have to cut it to length. And if it's too long, more than likely it is. And that's where I'm at. But I've got to figure out a couple of fittings on the turbo itself. I'm not sure what all the fitting for the coolant is. And the drain, I'll have to figure out that fitting. And I think I've got everything else for the most part as far as fittings. Yeah. And that's where I'm at with it. So, all right, here we go.
I'm feeling high.